Look at me when I'm talking to you, boy. Trash like you needs reminding of your place. Officer Dale Riker's voice sliced through the diner as he backhanded Marcus so hard his cheek struck the window. The badge on Riker's chest gleamed as he leaned in, breath thick with arrogance. Next time you laugh when I walk in, I'll make sure you remember who runs this town. His fist twisted Marcus's collar, yanking him upright for every trembling customer to witness. The heat radiating across his cheek pulsed with each breath. But Marcus stayed still, silent, unbroken. Riker had no idea he was assaulting the one boy whose father outranked every badge in the building. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The autumn sun slanted through Nora's diner's windows, casting long shadows across the checkered floor. Marcus Holloway slid into the worn leather booth with his friends Jamal and Trevor, their backpacks stuffed under the table. The after-school crowd had thinned out, leaving only a few regulars nursing coffee cups at the counter. "Man, you should have seen Coach Wilson's face when Trevor scored that three-pointer," Jamal said, grinning as he grabbed a menu. Marcus laughed, the sound bright and natural. "For real, though. I thought his eyes were going to pop out of his head." The bell above the door chimed. Officer Dale Riker stomped in, his boots heavy on the linoleum. His face was flushed red, jaw clenched tight. He'd just finished a traffic stop that hadn't gone his way, and everyone could see the anger rolling off him in waves. Nora Jensen looked up from behind the counter, her smile fading slightly. She'd seen that look on Riker before. Nothing good ever followed it. The boys' laughter echoed again, as Trevor mimicked their basketball coach's expression. Marcus wiped tears from his eyes, not noticing how Riker's head snapped toward their booth, his eyes narrowing dangerously. "Something funny?" Riker's voice cut through the diner's quiet atmosphere. He took 3 long strides toward their table, his hand resting deliberately on his belt. Marcus's smile faltered. "No, sir. We were just—" The crack of flesh meeting flesh echoed like a gunshot. Marcus's head snapped to the side, his cheek blazing red where Riker's hand had struck him. The force knocked him against the window, and his water glass toppled, spilling across the table. Silence dropped like a heavy curtain. Trevor froze mid-breath, his face pale. Jamal's hands clenched into fists under the table, but fear kept him still. At the counter, coffee cups stopped halfway to shocked mouths. "Not so funny now, is it, boy?" Riker's voice dripped with satisfaction. His lips curled into an ugly smirk as he straightened his uniform shirt. Behind the counter, Nora's hands shook as she reached for her phone, but her voice was steady. "That's assault, Officer Riker. On a minor. In front of witnesses." Riker turned slowly, his smirk widening. "Witnesses? I don't see any witnesses. Do you?" His gaze swept the diner. Customers quickly looked away, suddenly fascinated by their coffee cups or phones. But Nora stood straighter, her chin lifting. "Maybe not. But that new security system sure saw everything." She pointed to the small black dome in the corner, its red light blinking steadily. "HD quality. Uploads straight to the cloud. Real nice picture." Something flickered in Riker's eyes. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. But it vanished quickly behind his practiced arrogance. "We'll see about that," he said, then turned back to Marcus. "Stay in line, boy. Next time might not be just a slap." The bell chimed again as Riker pushed through the door, leaving behind a diner full of held breath and trembling hands. Marcus sat perfectly still, one hand pressed to his burning cheek. A thin line of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Trevor grabbed napkins from the dispenser, dabbing at the spilled water while shooting worried glances at his friend. "I'm calling your father," Nora said, already dialing. Her free hand gripped the counter so tight her knuckles went white. "This ends today." The other customers began whispering among themselves, their voices a low hum of shock and guilt. "Did you see that? Someone should do something." "But what can anyone do? He's a cop." Jamal slid closer to Marcus, his voice low and angry. "You okay, man?" That was messed up. That was so messed up. Marcus nodded slightly, but didn't speak. His eyes stayed fixed on the table, watching water drip slowly onto the floor. The red handprint on his face stood out stark against his brown skin. Nora hurried over with an ice pack wrapped in a clean towel. "Here, honey. Hold this on it." She turned to check her security monitor, confirming that everything had been captured. The footage was clear. Riker's approach, the unprovoked slap, the threat. Everything. Minutes crawled by like hours. The ice pack began to melt, cold water running down Marcus's wrist. Trevor and Jamal kept shooting glances at the door, jumping slightly every time the bell chimed as customers left, whispering promises to tell their parents what they'd witnessed. When the bell rang again, Marcus didn't look up, but he felt the shift in the air, the way the remaining customers went quiet. Heavy, measured footsteps crossed the floor. Isaiah Holloway stood in the entrance, his FBI badge glinting on his belt under his open jacket. His face was completely still, unreadable, but his eyes took in everything. The ice pack his son held to his face, the spilled water, the way Marcus's friends pressed close on either side of him protectively. He moved forward with the careful precision of a man holding himself in rigid control. Each step measured, each breath even. Only someone who knew him well would recognize the tension in his shoulders, the slight tightening around his eyes that betrayed the fury building beneath his calm exterior. Marcus finally looked up as his father's shadow fell across the table, their eyes meeting in a moment of shared pain and uncertainty. The diner held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Isaiah crossed the diner floor with measured steps, his presence commanding attention without a word. The bell chimed again as Avery Holloway rushed in behind him, her nurse's instincts already assessing their son from across the room. "Marcus, baby," Avery called out, hurrying past her husband. She slid into the booth beside Marcus, gently turning his face to examine the angry red mark. Her fingers were tender but professional as they probed the swelling. "Does it hurt to open your mouth? Any dizziness?" "I'm okay, Mom," Marcus mumbled, but he leaned into her touch, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Isaiah stood at the end of the table, his hands resting lightly on the surface. "Tell me everything," he said, his voice low and steady. His eyes never left the mark on his son's face. Nora stepped forward, wringing her hands in her apron. "That monster Riker came in here looking for trouble. The boys were just laughing about basketball practice, and he—" She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "He walked right up and slapped Marcus. No warning, no reason, just hit a child in my diner. He said we were being funny," Marcus added, his voice barely above a whisper. "We weren't even talking about him. We were just laughing about Coach Wilson at practice. And then—" His voice cracked slightly. Avery's arm tightened around his shoulders. Jamal nodded vigorously. "It's true, Mr. Holloway. We were just talking about basketball. Officer Riker came in already mad about something. But I got it all on camera," Nora said firmly, pointing to the security dome. "Clear as day. Installed it last month after some vandalism. Records everything in HD. Uploads it all online, too." Isaiah's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "I'd like to see that footage, Ms. Jensen." Before Nora could respond, the bell chimed again. Two uniformed officers stepped inside, Officers Brady and Martinez. The remaining customers quickly gathered their things and hurried out, leaving only the Holloways, Marcus's friends, and Nora. "Evening, folks," Brady said, his fake cheerfulness filling the space. "We're here to do a routine technical check on all business security systems in the area. Mind if we take a look at yours, Miss Jensen?" Nora crossed her arms. "Funny timing for a technical check. Never heard of such a thing before." Martinez stepped forward, his hand resting casually on his belt. "New department policy. Just doing our job, ma'am." "Well, I decline," Nora said firmly. "My system's working just fine, and I know my rights. You need a warrant to access my private security setup. Brady's smile tightened. That's your choice, ma'am. But sometimes these old systems can be unreliable. Would hate for something to happen to your footage. If there's a technical problem we could have prevented. Isaiah turned slowly to face the officers, his movement deliberate. Are you threatening Ms. Jensen? Not at all, sir, Brady said smoothly. Just offering a friendly service. But we'll be back, with the proper paperwork. He nodded to Martinez, and they left, the bell's cheerful ring contrasting with the heavy atmosphere they left behind. Once they were gone, Isaiah pulled a chair to the booth. Marcus, look at me. When his son met his eyes, Isaiah continued, What happened to you today was wrong. It was criminal, and it will not go unpunished. But he's a cop, Marcus said, his voice small. They all protect each other. Not this time. Isaiah's tone was absolute. He turned to Nora. Ms. Jensen, could we speak privately for a moment? Nora nodded, leading him to the counter while Avery stayed with Marcus and his friends, talking softly to them. I need to tell you something, Isaiah said quietly. I'm a federal agent, FBI. I specialize in civil rights violations and corruption cases. He pulled out his badge, letting Nora examine it. Nora's eyes widened. Your FBI? All this time? Isaiah nodded. I keep it quiet for my family's safety. But I need you to know, I have the authority and the resources to handle this properly, if you're willing to help. Willing? Nora almost laughed. I've watched Riker and his friends bully this town for years. Nobody could stop them, because nobody had the power to fight back. Her eyes gleamed. But you do, don't you? Yes, Isaiah said simply. Can you send me that footage now? Before anything happens to it? Nora hurried to her office, returning with her phone. I'm sending it to your email. I've got backups too, just in case. Been dealing with their kind long enough to know better. While they talked, Avery helped Marcus clean his face, her gentle hands checking for any signs of serious injury. Trevor and Jamal shared everything they could remember about the incident, their words tumbling over each other. We should get him home, Avery said when Isaiah returned to the table. He needs rest. Isaiah helped Marcus stand, noting how his son tried to hide his trembling. Ms. Jensen, thank you. We'll be in touch. Take care of that boy, Nora called after them. And Agent Holloway? Make them pay. The drive home was quiet. Marcus went straight to his room, Avery following with an ice pack and pain relievers. Isaiah stood in the hallway, watching his son curl up on his bed, looking so much younger than his 15 years. Later that night, while Marcus slept fitfully down the hall, Isaiah sat in his home office, watching the security footage for the 4th time. The slap echoed through his headphones, sharp, sudden, cruel. He paused the video on Riker's smirking face, studying every detail while his mind began mapping out the path ahead. Early morning sunlight streamed through the Holloway kitchen windows, painting warm rectangles across the granite countertops. Isaiah stood at his laptop, coffee cooling beside him as he prepared to email the security footage to his federal contacts. The video would ignite an investigation, clear evidence of police brutality against a minor, impossible to ignore. His phone buzzed. Nora Jensen's name flashed on the screen. They took it, Nora's voice cracked with panic. The whole security system, they ripped it right out of the walls. Isaiah's fingers tightened on his phone. When? Must have been overnight. I just opened up and... She took a shaky breath. The wires are hanging everywhere. They didn't even try to hide what they did. Don't touch anything. I'm on my way. Isaiah grabbed his keys, pausing only to tell Avery where he was going. The morning air was crisp as he pulled into the diner's parking lot 10 minutes later. A few regular customers stood outside, murmuring among themselves. Inside, Nora paced behind the counter, her face pale. Look, she said, pointing to the ceiling. Where the security dome had been, only torn wires remained, dangling like exposed nerves. The mounting bracket hung loose, screws scattered on the floor below. Isaiah pulled out his phone and began taking photos, documenting every angle of the damage. They broke in through the back door, Nora said, leading him to the kitchen. Picked the lock clean, didn't even break anything. Professionals. She laughed bitterly. Professionals with badges, I'm guessing. The back door showed no signs of forced entry, but Isaiah photographed it anyway. In the small office, the recorder unit was gone, leaving only empty shelves and more disconnected cables. This is good, Isaiah said quietly. Nora stared at him. Good? They stole my evidence. They proved there was evidence worth stealing. Isaiah's voice was steady. This isn't random vandalism. This is confirmation of a cover-up, which is a federal crime. They're scared, Nora. They should be. But without the video, we still have the copy you sent me. Isaiah touched her shoulder gently. This isn't over. It's just beginning. After assuring Nora he would handle everything, Isaiah drove to the police station. The front desk officer barely glanced up as he approached. I need to speak with Chief Strickmore, Isaiah said. Regarding an assault on my son yesterday. Chief's busy, the officer drawled, not looking up from his phone. Tell him Isaiah Holloway is here about Officer Riker's actions at Jensen's diner. The officer's thumb paused mid-scroll. He reached for his desk phone, murmuring something too low to hear. A moment later, he nodded toward the hallway. Third door on the right. Chief Harold Strickmore sat behind a large desk, his silver hair perfectly combed, his uniform crisp. He smiled without warmth as Isaiah entered. Mr. Holloway, Strickmore said, gesturing to a chair. What can I do for you this morning? I'm here to file a formal complaint against Officer Dale Riker for assaulting my son yesterday. Strickmore's smile didn't waver. Ah, yes, the unfortunate miscommunication at the diner. Officer Riker has already filed his report on the incident. Miscommunication? Isaiah kept his voice level. He slapped a 15-year-old boy across the face. According to Officer Riker's report, he was responding to disruptive behavior that could have escalated into a public disturbance. He used minimal contact to maintain order. There were witnesses who have provided statements supporting Officer Riker's account. Strickmore shuffled some papers on his desk. Your son and his friends were being loud, disrespectful. Officer Riker diffused the situation before it could become dangerous. Isaiah leaned forward slightly. The security footage shows exactly what happened. What security footage would that be? Strickmore's eyes gleamed. I understand Ms. Jensen's system suffered some technical difficulties last night. Shame about that. These older systems can be so unreliable. Are you saying you won't investigate this assault? I'm saying there's nothing to investigate. Unless you have clear evidence of misconduct? Strickmore spread his hands. We take all complaints seriously, Mr. Holloway, but we can't act on unsubstantiated allegations. My son's face isn't an unsubstantiated allegation. Teenager's roughhouse. Who knows how he got that mark? Strickmore's tone hardened slightly. Now, if there's nothing else? Isaiah stood slowly. This isn't over, Chief. No? Strickmore's smile returned, cold as winter. I think it is. Have a good day, Mr. Holloway. As Isaiah walked through the station, he heard snickers from a group of officers near the break room. He caught fragments of their conversation, put the kid in his place, and showed them who's boss. They fell silent as he passed, but their smirks remained. The morning sun had grown harsh by the time Isaiah reached his car. He sat behind the wheel, processing everything he'd seen and heard. The stolen security system, Strickmore's dismissal, the officer's open mockery. It painted a clear picture. This wasn't just about one racist cop losing his temper. The entire department was united in protecting their own, maintaining their power through intimidation and cover-ups. Isaiah parked in his driveway, his mind already cataloging resources and strategies. The local police had revealed themselves as a unified front of corruption. Taking down Riker wouldn't be enough. The whole system needed to be exposed and dismantled. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sidewalk as Marcus and his friends walked home from school. Their usual animated chatter had died down to nervous whispers ever since they'd spotted the police cruiser 2 blocks back, rolling along at a crawl behind them. "Just keep walking," whispered James, one of Marcus's friends. "Don't even look back." But Marcus couldn't help stealing a glance over his shoulder. Through the cruiser's windshield, he saw Officer Riker's face, hard and mean, eyes locked onto him. The officer's hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles showed white. Marcus's heart hammered in his chest. His face still stung where Riker had struck him yesterday, the memory making his stomach clench. He picked up his pace, and his friends matched it without a word. The cruiser maintained its distance, engine purring like a predator. When they reached the corner where James and their other friend Michael usually split off toward their street, both boys hesitated. "We can walk you all the way," Michael offered, his voice low. Marcus shook his head. "I'm only 2 blocks from home." "Go on." His friends reluctantly turned onto their street, leaving Marcus alone with the prowling police car behind him. His palms were sweaty around his backpack straps as he walked the final blocks, feeling Riker's eyes boring into his back the whole way. When Marcus finally reached his driveway, the cruiser rolled past slowly. Riker's face appeared in the side window, his expression promising that this wasn't over. Then he accelerated away, leaving Marcus trembling on his front step. Inside, Isaiah looked up from his laptop as Marcus burst through the door. One look at his son's face told him everything he needed to know. "Riker?" Isaiah asked quietly. Marcus nodded, dropping his backpack. "He followed us home. Didn't say anything, just watched." Isaiah crossed the room and put his hands on Marcus's shoulders. "That's what bullies do when they're scared. They try to intimidate people into silence. But we're not going to be silent." "I know," Marcus said, but his voice shook. "It's just, he has a badge and a gun, and everybody at the station backs him up." "Look at me," Isaiah said firmly. Marcus raised his eyes to meet his father's steady gaze. "He has a badge, but I have the law. Real law, not their twisted version. And I promise you, son, he's not going to win this." Marcus managed a small smile, drawing strength from his father's certainty. "Thanks, Dad." In the kitchen, Isaiah returned to his laptop where dozens of private messages filled his inbox. People who had been in the diner during the assault were reaching out, but only in secret. "He's done this before," one message read. "My nephew talked back to him last year and got the same treatment. We couldn't prove anything." Another stated, "I saw everything, but I can't come forward. My husband works for the city. They'd find a reason to fire him." Message after message told similar stories. Witnesses to Riker's brutality, victims of his aggression, all too frightened of retaliation to speak publicly. Isaiah carefully documented each account, building a pattern of abuse that stretched back years. Avery came home from her shift at the medical center and found Isaiah still at his laptop. She read over his shoulder, her expression growing more concerned with each message. "Isaiah," she said softly, "these people are scared for good reason. The department clearly has no limits. What's to stop them from escalating?" Isaiah turned to face his wife. "That's exactly why we can't back down. Every person who wrote to me is living in fear of their own police force. Marcus is living in fear. How many more kids need to be terrorized before someone stands up?" "I know," Avery sighed. "I just worry about what they might do next. Following Marcus home? That's a threat, plain and simple. It's also proof they're getting desperate." Isaiah closed his laptop. "They're used to people backing down, looking the other way. We're not going to do that. Just promise me you'll be careful," Avery said. "We need justice, but we also need you safe." Isaiah pulled her into a hug. "I'm always careful. That's why I'm good at my job." Later that night, as the family went through their bedtime routine, Marcus paused at his bedroom window. "Dad!" Isaiah joined him, following his son's gaze to the street below. An unmarked sedan with tinted windows sat idle at the curb, its engine running. After a long moment, it pulled away slowly, vanishing into the darkness. Another attempt at intimidation, Isaiah said calmly, though his jaw tightened. They want us looking over our shoulders, jumping at shadows. Is it working? Marcus asked quietly. Isaiah squeezed his son's shoulder. No, it's just showing us how important this fight is. People who abuse their power count on fear to protect them, but fear only works if we let it. Marcus nodded, drawing himself up straighter. I'm not letting it. That's my boy. Isaiah pulled Marcus into a quick hug. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's another day, and we're not backing down. After Marcus was in bed, Isaiah stood at his own bedroom window, watching the empty street where the unmarked car had been. In the glass, he could see Avery's reflection as she got ready for bed, her movements betraying her tension. They're watching us, she said softly. Good, Isaiah replied. Let them watch. Let them see exactly what it looks like when someone stands up to their corruption. Because this is just the beginning. Isaiah sat in his home office as dawn broke, the soft light filtering through the blinds. Coffee grew cold beside his keyboard as he reviewed his case notes, spreadsheets, and witness statements from the diner incident. The pattern was clear. Local authorities would block every official channel. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. 20 years of FBI work had taught him one thing. When the front door's locked, find another way in. The video evidence was gone, but that just meant he needed to build a different kind of case. His phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who'd been at the diner. Can we talk? Not at my house. Somewhere private. Isaiah replied, suggesting the library's study room. As he typed, another message arrived from a different neighbor. Then another. People wanted to talk, just not publicly. Avery appeared in the doorway, still in her nursing scrubs from the night shift. Have you slept at all? Couldn't, Isaiah said, showing her the messages. Too many people reaching out. This goes deeper than we thought. What do you mean? She sat on the edge of his desk, concern etching her features. Riker's been doing this for years, but it's not just him. There's a whole system protecting him. Isaiah pulled up a document. Look at this. Every complaint against him gets routed to Judge Matthews. Every single one. And Matthews dismisses them all for lack of evidence or insufficient cause. That's not coincidence, Avery said. No, it's not. And I bet if we dig deeper, we'll find connections between Matthews, the police brass, and local politicians. Isaiah stood, pacing the small office. This isn't just about what happened to Marcus anymore. It's about everyone who's been silenced. Isaiah, Avery's voice held a warning. Be careful. These people have power, and they're already watching us. Exactly why they need to be stopped. He showed her another message. Mrs. Patterson's grandson. Riker broke his arm during an arrest 2 years ago. Claimed the kid resisted. No witnesses came forward. Because they were scared? Because they knew nothing would change? Isaiah sat back down, his expression hardening. But something's different now. People are reaching out. They just need someone who can protect them while they tell their stories. Avery touched his shoulder. And that's you? That's the FBI. Once I have enough evidence of systematic corruption, this becomes a federal case. Local authorities can't stop that. He spent the next few hours meeting people in quiet corners of the library. Mrs. Patterson brought photos of her grandson's injuries. Mr. Rodriguez, a retired teacher, described watching Riker harass Hispanic students outside the high school. Each story built on the last, revealing a pattern of abuse protected by official indifference. Judge Matthews threw out my complaint without even reading it, Mrs. Patterson said, her hands trembling. Said I had no proof beyond my grandson's word. And the hospital records? Isaiah asked. Disappeared from the file. Just like that security footage from the diner. Isaiah documented everything meticulously, building a timeline of similar incidents. The same judge, the same missing evidence, the same witnesses, too frightened to speak publicly. Back home, he created a secure digital folder, encrypting each testimony. Marcus passed by the office, pausing in the doorway. "More people talking about Riker?" he asked. Isaiah nodded. "You're not alone, son. He's hurt a lot of people. But they're starting to find their voices. Because of what happened to me? Because it's time." Isaiah met his son's eyes. Sometimes it takes one incident to break the silence. But this isn't just about making him pay for hitting you. It's about making sure he can't hurt anyone else. Marcus considered this. The whole system's corrupt, isn't it? Parts of it are, deep parts. But systems can be changed if you know how to take them apart. And you do? Isaiah allowed himself a small smile. It's what I've trained for. Corruption thrives in darkness. We're going to shine a light so bright they can't hide anymore. Avery appeared behind Marcus, wrapping an arm around their son. "Just remember what we're risking," she said to Isaiah. "These people play dirty." "I know." Isaiah turned back to his computer. "That's why we have to be smarter, more patient. Build a case they can't bury or dismiss." He worked through the morning, mapping connections between incidents, identifying patterns in how complaints were handled. Every testimony added another piece to the puzzle, revealing not just individual acts of abuse, but a coordinated system of protection. By early afternoon, Isaiah had compiled enough preliminary evidence to justify a deeper investigation. Not just into Riker, but into Judge Matthews, the police leadership, and anyone else involved in maintaining their corrupt power structure. "I'm heading out," he told Avery, gathering his files. "Got a few more people to talk to." She caught his arm. "Promise me you're being careful." "Always am." He kissed her cheek. "This is just the beginning. They think they can intimidate us into silence, but they don't understand what they're dealing with. And what's that? Someone who knows how to fight corruption from the inside out." He checked his phone, noting 3 more messages from community members wanting to talk. They've gotten away with this for years because nobody had the power to stop them. That changes now. Isaiah headed for the door, case files secure in his briefcase. The morning's work had confirmed what he suspected. This wasn't just about one bad officer or one corrupt judge. It was about dismantling an entire system built on intimidation and abuse of power. Isaiah stood in the late afternoon sun outside Walker's grocery, watching shoppers hurry past with their bags. Mrs. Jenkins approached cautiously, looking over her shoulder before stopping near him. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly, hands fidgeting with her purse strap. "Thank you for meeting me," Isaiah said quietly. She nodded, eyes darting around the parking lot. "I shouldn't be here, but after what happened to your boy..." Her voice trembled. "Take your time. Tell me what you've seen." Mrs. Jenkins drew a shaky breath. "My daughter worked at the gas station on Pine Street. Riker would come in late at night when she was alone. Stand too close. Make comments. Follow her to her car sometimes." Isaiah took out his notebook, jotting details. "When was this?" "Last summer. She quit after 2 months. Couldn't take it anymore." Mrs. Jenkins wrung her hands. "We tried complaining to his supervisor. Next day, Riker shows up at our house. Says he's doing a routine check about suspicious activity in the neighborhood. Just stood there smirking. Did you file a formal complaint?" "Started to, but Judge Matthews..." She shook her head. "My husband's business depends on local permits. We got the message." Isaiah noticed her hands shaking. "I can protect you if you'll make an official statement." "No." The word came out sharp, fearful. "I shouldn't even be talking to you. They watch everything in this town. My daughter moved away because of him. I'm just glad she's safe now." "Others have come forward," Isaiah said gently. "Together, we can stop this. You don't understand." Mrs. Jenkins glanced at a passing police cruiser. "It's not just Riker. The whole department backs him up. The judge throws out complaints. The mayor's office loses paperwork. They're all connected. That's exactly why this needs to stop. She backed away, clutching her purse. I'm sorry about your son. Truly. But I can't sign anything. I can't testify. Please don't contact me again. Isaiah watched her hurry to her car, shoulders hunched. The fear in this town was like a thick fog, choking people's voices. He'd seen it before in corruption cases. How power twisted itself into knots. How threats became whispers, became silence. Later that afternoon, he walked into the police station, another formal complaint form in hand. The desk sergeant barely looked up. "Drop it in the box," he drawled, pointing to an overflowing basket. "I filed one yesterday, too," Isaiah said. "It seems to have been misplaced." The sergeant shrugged. "Processing delays. Lots of paperwork these days." "I'm sure you'll find it." Isaiah placed the new form directly on the desk. "I'll keep filing them until one gets processed." "Suit yourself." The sergeant swept the form into a drawer. "Could take weeks, though. Months, even. Systems reel backed up." Isaiah recognized the game. Delay, obstruct, lose documents, wait for people to give up. But he wasn't most people. "I'll check back tomorrow," he said pleasantly. And the next day, and the day after that. The sergeant's expression hardened. Might want to reconsider that. Persistent complaints can be frustrating for everyone involved. Isaiah held his gaze. "Is that a threat, Sergeant?" "Just friendly advice." The sergeant turned away. "Next in line." Driving home, Isaiah catalogued the day's interactions in his mind. The fearful witness, the obstructive sergeant, the implied threats, all pieces of the larger puzzle. He pulled into his driveway, noticing immediately the white paper taped to his front door. The message was typed. No signature. Drop it. Some things are better left alone. He was photographing the note when Marcus came home from basketball practice. "What's that?" his son asked, fear creeping into his voice. Isaiah quickly removed the paper. "Nothing to worry about. Just some people who don't like questions being asked." "Are we in danger?" Marcus stood closer to his father. "Maybe we should stop. Just let it go." "No." Isaiah put his arm around Marcus's shoulders. "That's exactly what they want. They think fear will protect them. But fear only works if we let it." Inside, he added the warning note to his growing file. The threatening message, Mrs. Jenkins's account, the sergeant's obstruction. Each incident strengthened the pattern of institutional corruption. But he needed more. Needed evidence that couldn't be buried or dismissed. Marcus lingered in the doorway of his office. What if they do something worse than notes? Then they'll prove exactly why they need to be stopped. Isaiah looked up from his work. "I know you're scared, but running from bullies only makes them bolder. Trust me to handle this." "I do trust you." Marcus hesitated. "But everyone else is scared too. Mrs. Patterson stopped talking to me at church. Mr. Rodriguez crossed the street when he saw me coming." "Fear is contagious," Isaiah said. "But so is courage. One person stands up, then another, then another. That's how change happens." He spent the next hour updating his case files, cross-referencing dates and names. The warning note joined dozens of other documented incidents of intimidation. The pattern was clear, but he needed something concrete, evidence that couldn't be lost or explained away. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was brief. "We need to talk." "I can help." Isaiah parked his unmarked car behind the abandoned Gas and Go on Miller Road, headlights off. The setting sun cast long shadows across the cracked pavement, painting the empty lot in shades of orange and gray. He checked his mirrors. No other vehicles in sight. Deputy Eli Navarro emerged from behind the building, walking quickly with his head down. He wasn't in uniform, wearing instead a plain brown jacket and jeans. Every few steps, he glanced over his shoulder. Isaiah stepped out of his car. "Deputy." "Agent Holloway." Eli's voice was barely above a whisper. He stayed close to the building's shadow. "Thanks for coming alone. You said you could help." Eli ran a hand through his hair, shifting his weight from foot to foot. What I'm about to tell you, what I'm about to share, it could end my career, or worse. I understand the risks, Isaiah said, and I can protect you. A bitter laugh escaped Eli's lips. Like you protected your son? No offense, sir, but you don't know what you're dealing with here. This goes deep. Really deep. Then help me understand. Eli looked around again before continuing. It's not just Riker. He's just the enforcer, the visible face. The whole department runs on corruption. Has for years. Explain. Evidence disappears. Reports get rewritten. Complaints vanish. Eli's words came faster now, like he'd been holding them back for years. That dash cam footage showing excessive force, technical malfunction, witness statements about harassment, lost in processing, drug money seized during raids, never makes it to evidence. Isaiah took out his notebook. How long have you known? Since my first year. I tried speaking up once, early on. Eli pulled up his sleeve, revealing a faded scar. 2 days later, I got jumped in the parking lot. 3 guys in masks. Said next time they'd do worse. The diner footage, Isaiah said. What really happened? Eli glanced at the darkening sky. Riker and Sergeant Mills went in that night, disabled the system, took the drive. Standard procedure when we need evidence gone. But he reached into his jacket pocket, hands trembling slightly. But I'm the one who handles digital uploads. Before they grabbed the drive, I copied everything to a secure cloud account, then downloaded it here. He held up a small flash drive. Every angle, clear as day, shows exactly what Riker did to your son. Isaiah kept his voice steady. Why are you showing me this now? Because I'm tired. Eli's shoulders sagged. Tired of watching them hurt people. Tired of being part of it. Been waiting for someone with real authority to take them down. Someone they can't touch. No one's untouchable, Deputy. They think they are. The chief, the judge, the mayor's office. They're all connected. Cover each other's tracks. Share the profits. Eli held out the drive. But this they can't bury. Not if it comes from a federal agent. Isaiah took the drive carefully. I'll need you to testify. No. Eli backed away. I gave you the evidence. That's all I can do. If they find out I leaked anything, his voice cracked. I've got a family too. We can protect you. Witness protection. You don't get it. Eli's eyes were wide with fear. They have people everywhere. The hospital, the school system, local businesses. One word from them, and my life here is over. My kids' lives. A car passed on the distant highway. Both men instinctively pressed closer to the building's shadow. At least let me document your statement, Isaiah said. Off the record for now. Eli shook his head. The video shows enough. Times, dates, badge numbers, it's all there. But I was never here, never spoke to you, never gave you anything. Deputy, please. Eli was already backing away. Just make it count. Make them pay. But leave me out of it. Isaiah watched him disappear around the building's corner, footsteps fading into the gathering dark. The flash drive felt heavy in his hand, small but powerful, like a loaded gun. He got back in his car, starting the engine but keeping the lights off. The drive would need to be verified, authenticated. He'd need to prove chain of custody, establish its origins without compromising Eli. But if the footage was intact, a patrol car rolled past on the main road. Isaiah waited until its taillights vanished before pulling out. He took a circuitous route home, checking his mirrors frequently, watching for followers. The streets were quiet, houses lit from within as families settled in for the evening. Normal lives in a town rotting from the inside. How many others like Eli were out there? How many saw the corruption but stayed silent out of fear? His grip tightened on the steering wheel. The flash drive sat securely in his inner pocket, pressed against his chest. After days of dead ends and threats, finally, something solid. Something they couldn't make disappear with bureaucratic delays or midnight break-ins. He thought of Marcus, of the red mark Riker's hand had left on his son's face, of Mrs. Jenkins and her daughter, of Eli's scar, of all the others who'd been silenced. The evidence in his pocket wasn't just about one assault in a diner. It was about breaking a system built on fear. Isaiah turned onto his street, scanning for unfamiliar vehicles before pulling into his driveway. The house was warm with light, Marcus's shadow moving past an upstairs window. He touched the pocket containing the drive one more time before stepping out of the car. Hope was a dangerous thing in a corrupt town. But tonight, at least, it felt justified. Isaiah sat at his home office desk early the next morning, fingers hovering over his laptop keyboard. The flash drive from Eli felt like it carried the weight of the entire town's secrets. He plugged it in, holding his breath as the files loaded. The video player opened. Crystal clear footage filled his screen, multiple angles showing the diner interior. He clicked play, his jaw tightening as he watched the scene unfold again. Riker's swagger as he entered. Marcus and his friends laughing at their own private joke. The moment Riker's face twisted with rage. The sharp crack of the slap. The timestamp was clear. The metadata intact. Every angle showed the same unprovoked assault. "Thank God," he whispered, immediately creating multiple backups on his secure federal drives. He wouldn't let this evidence disappear like the original. Isaiah composed an email to Catherine Martinez, his contact at the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. He attached the footage, along with his preliminary case notes documenting the subsequent cover-up attempts. His phone rang 20 minutes later. "Isaiah," Catherine's voice was sharp with concern. "I just watched the footage. Clear assault of a minor, abuse of power, absolutely no provocation. We're starting review immediately." "The local department is actively suppressing evidence," Isaiah said. "They've already attempted to destroy the original recording. Document everything. I'm putting this on priority status." Papers rustled in the background. "We should have preliminary authorization for intervention within days." Relief flooded through him. "Thank you, Catherine." "Don't thank me yet. Keep building your case. And Isaiah? Watch your back. Officers like this get desperate when cornered." As if to prove her point, his phone buzzed with a text from Marcus's friend Tyler just after lunch. "Riker followed us from school, made us stop walking, said we better forget what we saw or else." Isaiah's hands clenched. He called Tyler immediately, voice calm despite his anger. "Tell me exactly what happened." "He pulled up in his cruiser," Tyler's voice shook. "Made us stand there while he talked about how memories can be tricky things and how it's safer to forget. Said he'd hate to see us get hurt because we remembered wrong." "Are you somewhere safe now?" "Yeah, my mom picked us up. But Marcus..." Tyler paused. "He's really scared, Mr. Holloway." "We all are." Isaiah assured Tyler he was doing the right thing by reporting it, then called Nora at the diner. She answered in a whisper. "They're here again," she said. "Two officers doing another routine inspection. Third time this week. They're going through my permits, making threats about violations." "Document everything," Isaiah told her. "Take photos, if you can do it safely." "We're building a pattern." He spent the afternoon in his office, digging through public records. Department expense reports showed irregularities, equipment purchases that never arrived, maintenance fees for vehicles that didn't exist, over time, pay for shifts that couldn't be verified. He created a spreadsheet tracking every questionable transaction. Avery found him still working when she got home from her shift at the clinic. She set a cup of coffee on his desk. "Marcus is upstairs," she said softly. "He barely touched his dinner. Said he keeps seeing Riker's car everywhere he goes." Isaiah rubbed his eyes. "How is he?" "Trying to be brave." "But he's 15, Isaiah. He shouldn't have to be brave just to walk to school." She squeezed his shoulder. "Tell me there's good news." The DOJ is reviewing the case. The video evidence is strong. He showed her his financial spreadsheet. And this could prove systematic corruption, missing funds, false reports, possible kickbacks. Be careful, she said. The more you find, the more dangerous they become. I know. He covered her hand with his. But we can't back down now, not just for Marcus, but for everyone they've hurt. I know. She kissed his forehead. Just remember, they're not above anything. These men have built their careers on intimidation. His phone rang again. Catherine from the DOJ. Isaiah, the review board just finished their preliminary assessment. This is exactly the kind of case we've been waiting for. Clear evidence, multiple violations, signs of systemic abuse. We're drafting intervention paperwork now. Timeline. Days, not weeks. We'll need witness statements, your financial records, everything you've gathered. But Isaiah? Her voice softened. This looks promising. Really promising. He thanked her and hung up, letting out a long breath. Upstairs, he could hear Marcus moving around his room, probably trying to finish homework, while looking over his shoulder. Outside, darkness was falling on their quiet street, where any passing headlights could belong to those sworn to protect, or those bent on intimidation. Isaiah turned back to his computer, adding another suspicious payment to his spreadsheet. The evidence was mounting. The wheels of justice were finally turning. But until final authorization came through, his family remained vulnerable. He would have to be methodical, thorough, and above all, careful. He thought of Eli, risking everything to share that footage. Of Nora, standing firm despite repeated harassment. Of Marcus, trying to stay strong while looking over his shoulder. They were all counting on him to build an airtight case. The cursor blinked on his screen, waiting for the next entry. Outside, a car drove past slowly, its headlights sweeping across his office wall. Isaiah kept working, documenting every abuse of power, every financial irregularity, every attempt at intimidation. The truth was coming together, piece by damning piece. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows as Isaiah gathered his family for breakfast. Marcus sat picking at his toast, while Avery poured coffee. The tension that had gripped their home for days felt slightly lighter this morning. I have some good news, Isaiah said, watching his son's face. The Department of Justice is reviewing our case. They've seen the video evidence. Marcus looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. Really? They believe us? They do. Isaiah reached across the table to squeeze his hand. Catherine, my contact there, says it's exactly the kind of case they're looking for. Clear evidence of abuse of power. Multiple violations. What happens next? Avery asked, sitting down with her coffee. They're drafting intervention paperwork now. Once that's approved, they'll launch a formal investigation. Isaiah smiled at Marcus. That means Riker and everyone who helped cover this up will face real consequences. How long? Marcus's voice was quiet, but steady. Days, according to Catherine. They're fast-tracking it. Isaiah pulled out his phone, showing them an email. See? They're already requesting all my documentation. Witness statements, financial records, everything I've gathered. For the first time in days, Marcus's shoulders relaxed slightly. So they can't just make it disappear anymore? No, son. This is federal now. Way above their heads. Isaiah watched relief wash over his son's face. The truth is coming out. By mid-morning, whispers were circulating through town. Isaiah got a call from Nora at the diner. The officers who have been harassing me didn't show up today, she said. And I just overheard some customers talking about possible suspensions coming at the department. Is it true? Nothing's official yet, Isaiah said carefully. But change is coming. Around lunchtime, he spotted Riker on patrol while driving to the post office. The officer's usual swagger was gone, replaced by tense shoulders and darting glances. When he saw Isaiah's car, he quickly turned down a side street. Isaiah's phone buzzed with a text from Eli. Hearing rumors about Fed investigation. Ready to testify if needed. Have more documentation to share. Stay safe, Isaiah texted back. Keep everything secure. I'll contact you when it's time. He spent the afternoon organizing his files, making sure every piece of evidence was properly documented and backed up. Financial records showing suspicious payments. Witness statements describing years of abuse. Photos of the damaged security system at the diner. The video footage itself, with all its damning clarity. Avery called from the clinic during her break. The atmosphere in town feels different today, she said. Like everyone's holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. People are tired of being afraid, Isaiah replied. Once they see real action being taken, more will come forward. Marcus texted me earlier. Said Riker's car wasn't anywhere near the school today. They're getting nervous, starting to realize they can't intimidate their way out of this one. That evening, the Holloways sat down to dinner together. The constant tension of the past weeks had eased, replaced by cautious optimism. Marcus even smiled when Avery asked about his history test. I actually could focus today, he said, reaching for seconds of pasta. Didn't keep looking over my shoulder. Things are going to get better, Isaiah promised. The truth always comes out eventually. Sometimes it just needs a little help. They lingered at the table longer than usual, sharing stories and small jokes. The weight of fear that had pressed down on them felt lighter. Even the street outside seemed less threatening. The passing cars, just cars again, not potential threats. After dinner, Marcus worked on homework at the kitchen table instead of hiding in his room. Avery hummed while loading the dishwasher. Isaiah reviewed his files one more time, making sure everything was ready for formal submission. Dad? Marcus looked up from his textbook. Thank you for not letting them get away with it. Isaiah met his son's eyes, seeing not just relief there, but pride. No one has the right to hurt you, Marcus. Not ever. And especially not someone sworn to protect and serve. I know. But a lot of kids don't have dads who can fight back like this. That's why we keep fighting, Isaiah said. Not just for you, but for everyone who's been silenced. The peaceful evening stretched on. Avery made hot chocolate. They watched a movie together, Marcus actually laughing at the funny parts instead of staring anxiously out the window. It felt like their first normal family night in weeks. Just before midnight, after Marcus had gone up to bed, Isaiah's phone lit up with a message. His stomach dropped as he read it. Eli's been attacked. He's at Memorial Hospital. Critical condition. The brief moment of peace shattered like glass. The hospital's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as Isaiah hurried through the empty corridors just before sunrise. His footsteps echoed against the linoleum floors, each step carrying the weight of growing dread. The night nurse directed him to room 312, her face grim. Isaiah stopped in the doorway, his breath catching at the sight before him. Eli lay motionless in the hospital bed, his face so swollen it was barely recognizable. Tubes and wires connected him to softly beeping machines. Dark bruises covered every visible inch of skin. Mr. Holloway? A doctor approached, clipboard in hand. I'm Dr. Matthews. I've been overseeing Deputy Navarro's care since he was brought in. How bad is it? Isaiah asked, his voice tight. Multiple facial fractures, 3 broken ribs, severe trauma to the larynx. Dr. Matthews spoke quietly, glancing at his notes. The damage to his throat is extensive. Even after it heals, he won't be able to speak for at least 6 to 8 weeks. Isaiah moved closer to the bed, studying the brutal evidence of what happened to the one person who dared to help him. Was he conscious when they found him? No. A jogger discovered him in the park around 11 last night. The doctor hesitated. Mr. Holloway, these injuries, they were deliberately inflicted. Whoever did this knew exactly how to cause maximum damage without being lethal. They wanted him alive but silent, Isaiah said, more to himself than the doctor. The police were here earlier taking statements, Dr. Matthews added carefully. They seemed unusually quick to label it a random mugging. Isaiah's jaw clenched. He knew exactly which officers had visited. The same ones loyal to Riker, already working to bury another truth. He pulled out his phone to photograph Eli's injuries, documenting everything while he still could. The morning sun was just beginning to paint the sky pink when his phone buzzed. Catherine's name flashed on the screen, his DOJ contact. Finally, something might go right. Isaiah. Her voice was strained. I'm sorry. The intervention authorization has been pulled. The words hit him like physical blows. What? How? Someone way above my pay grade made a call? All I know is there was contact from a major political donor in your district. Suddenly, we're being told there are insufficient grounds to proceed. She paused. Isaiah, I've never seen interference this fast, or this complete. Whatever you're onto, you've scared someone with serious influence. His free hand gripped the hospital bed rail until his knuckles went white. Catherine, I have video evidence, witness statements, financial records showing. I know, but orders are orders. They're shutting it down completely. She lowered her voice. Watch your back, Isaiah. These people clearly aren't playing by any rules. The call ended, leaving him standing in the sterile hospital room with unconscious Eli and his crumbling case. On instinct, he pulled out his secure tablet to check the video file, the foundation everything else was built on. Error message, file corrupted. Isaiah tried again, his fingers moving faster. Another error. He launched his recovery software, but the damage was too extensive. Someone had gotten to the file before Eli passed it to him, implanting corruption that would trigger once it was copied. The footage was gone. A nurse came in to check Eli's vitals, her soft shoes squeaking on the floor. Poor thing, she murmured, adjusting an IV line. Family's been notified, but they're out of state. Won't be here until tonight. Isaiah looked at Eli's battered face, at what happened to someone who simply tried to do the right thing. In less than 6 hours, every piece of hope had been systematically destroyed. The video was gone. Federal intervention blocked. His key witness would be unable to speak for weeks. And hovering over it all was the shadow of whoever had enough power to make the Justice Department back down with a single phone call. He walked numbly through the hospital's sliding doors into the pale morning light. The parking lot was starting to fill with early shift workers, normal people heading to normal jobs. But nothing felt normal anymore. Inside his car, Isaiah gripped the steering wheel, trying to steady his racing thoughts. Months of careful work, demolished in a single night. The realization that corruption reached far beyond a small-town police department, stretching into halls of power he hadn't even considered. And worst of all, the knowledge that he'd have to go home and tell Marcus that justice wasn't coming after all. The morning sun crept higher, warming the car's interior, but Isaiah felt cold. In his mind, he saw Marcus's face from just hours ago, finally showing hope again. Heard his son's words, "Thank you for not letting them get away with it." Except they had gotten away with it. They'd won using the same tactics they always used: violence, intimidation, and the power of money to silence truth. The system hadn't failed. It had worked exactly as designed, protecting those at the top while crushing anyone who challenged them. Through the windshield, Isaiah watched hospital staff changing shifts. A young nurse helped an elderly patient into a wheelchair. A maintenance worker emptied outdoor trash bins. The ordinary world kept turning while his had just imploded. His phone buzzed again. Avery, probably wondering where he was. But he couldn't face her yet. Couldn't find the words to explain how thoroughly they'd been beaten. How he'd not only failed to get justice for Marcus, but his efforts had gotten Eli brutally attacked. Isaiah sat motionless in his car, the weight of defeat pressing down on him like a physical thing. Every path forward seemed blocked, every piece of evidence destroyed or suppressed, every witness silenced or scared away. The morning light grew stronger, but inside his car, shadows seemed to be winning. Isaiah's car pulled into the driveway just as the sun broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that felt mockingly cheerful. His feet dragged as he walked to the front door, his shoulders heavy with the weight of everything that had collapsed overnight. Avery was waiting in the kitchen, 2 untouched cups of coffee on the counter. Her eyes searched his face, reading the defeat there before he could speak. How bad? Everything. Isaiah sank into a chair. Eli's in the hospital, beaten half to death. The video's gone. The DOJ backed off after some donor made a call. He pressed his palms against his eyes. It's all gone, Avery. Every single piece we had. Footsteps on the stairs made them both look up. Marcus stood in the doorway, still in his pajamas, dark circles under his eyes, suggesting another sleepless night. Dad? Marcus's voice was small. What happened? Isaiah opened his mouth to answer, but Marcus continued, the words tumbling out. Is it true? What everyone at school says? That they always get away with it? That there's no real justice for people like us? The question hit Isaiah like a physical blow. He saw the despair in his son's eyes, the crumbling of something fundamental. That childlike belief that right would triumph over wrong. That truth would matter more than power. Marcus, Isaiah started, but found himself struggling for words. Because they say Riker's done this before. That nothing ever happens. That the whole system just protects them. Marcus's voice cracked. So maybe they're right. Maybe justice isn't real. Avery moved to comfort Marcus, but Isaiah held up his hand, standing slowly. Something was shifting inside him, grief transforming into steel-hard determination. Listen to me, Isaiah said, his voice low and intense. Justice is real, but sometimes we have to fight for it differently than we planned. He walked to his son, placing both hands on his shoulders. The system they built, their system, it failed us. But that's not the only way to get justice. I've spent 20 years learning how these networks operate, how corruption protects itself. And I'm done playing by their rules. What does that mean? Marcus asked. It means we switch tactics. Isaiah's mind was already racing, pulling up old contacts, access points, investigative tools he hadn't used in years. They think they've destroyed our evidence? Fine. We'll find different evidence. They have power through money and influence? Then we'll follow that money until we expose every dirty connection. Avery watched him carefully. Isaiah, I know. He met her worried gaze. But I won't let them win. Not this time. He went to his home office, powered up his secure laptop, and began pulling financial records. Years of experience had taught him that corruption always left a trail. In bank transfers, property records, tax documents. He started with Riker's department, examining budget allocations and expense reports. Hours passed. Marcus left for school, though Isaiah barely registered it. Avery brought him fresh coffee, hovering briefly before heading to her shift at the clinic. The morning sun tracked across his office window as he dug deeper. Patterns emerged, irregular payments, equipment purchases that didn't match inventory, training expenses for programs that didn't exist. But it was bigger than just department-level corruption. The numbers led to shell companies, which led to property holdings, which led to a name that kept appearing. James Whitman. Isaiah sat back, rubbing his tired eyes. Whitman was one of the wealthiest men in the county, a real estate developer who'd donated millions to local politicians. His name carried weight in every circle of power. More digging revealed a web of connections. Whitman's companies had been awarded countless municipal contracts without competitive bidding. His developments received instant approval, while others languished. And every time accusations of misconduct surfaced against the police department, a large donation from one of his shell companies would appear in campaign funds or police charity accounts. Isaiah pulled up Whitman's photo, a silver-haired man with an expensive smile, the kind who collected influence like others collected art. The kind who could make a phone call and shut down a federal investigation. The pieces locked into place. Whitman wasn't just connected to the corruption, he was its architect. His money bought protection for officers like Riker, who in turn enforced Whitman's interests through intimidation and violence. The police department wasn't just corrupt, it was essentially a private security force for Whitman's empire. Isaiah began documenting everything, creating backups on secure servers. Each transaction, each connection, each abuse of power carefully noted and cross-referenced. The sun was high overhead now, but he barely noticed, too focused on mapping the network that had seemed untouchable just hours ago. The front door opened and closed, Avery coming home for lunch. She appeared in his office doorway, concern etched on her face. "Have you moved at all since I left?" Isaiah looked up from his screen, where another suspicious payment had just revealed itself. "I found it, Avery. The whole structure. Every piece of it." He gestured at his monitors. "Whitman's been running this town like a private fiefdom, using the police as his enforcers. The assault on Marcus, the cover-up, Eli's beating. It's all part of the same system." Avery studied the financial records displayed on his screens, her expression torn between fear of what this might cost their family and pride in her husband's refusal to back down. "The question is," she said softly, "what are you going to do with it?" Isaiah looked at the evidence he'd gathered. Proof of years of systematic corruption and abuse of power, all leading back to one man who thought himself untouchable. His jaw set with determination as he began organizing the files into categories: financial crimes, civil rights violations, abuse of authority. Isaiah packed his laptop and specialized equipment into an unmarked backpack. He couldn't risk working from home anymore, not with the surveillance he'd spotted. 2 different unmarked cars had circled their street since dawn. "I'll be at the business center downtown," he told Avery, kissing her cheek. "Better security, and they can't watch me there without drawing attention." The Liberty Business Center occupied the 3rd floor of a glass office building. Isaiah had rented a private suite there years ago under a corporate shell company. Standard procedure for sensitive cases. The space offered what he needed: secure internet, controlled access, and most importantly, privacy. He set up his equipment methodically. The air conditioning hummed steadily as his specialized recovery software began scanning for digital breadcrumbs. Years of experience had taught him that deleted files often left traces, ghost data that most people didn't know how to fully erase. "Come on," he muttered, eyes fixed on the screen as the program worked. "Show me what they tried to hide." After 3 hours, the first breakthrough came. The software had recovered partially deleted metadata from the police department's internal server, timestamps and file names matching the night of the diner incident. Isaiah leaned forward, fingers flying across the keyboard as he isolated the fragments. The metadata revealed multiple copies of the video file had been created, then deliberately wiped. But they'd been sloppy, leaving digital fingerprints. Each copy had been accessed from different department computers, creating a trail of who had viewed it before its destruction. Isaiah documented everything, noting each timestamp and user ID. The pattern showed a clear timeline of the cover-up, from the moment the footage entered their system to its eventual deletion. But he needed more. Metadata alone wouldn't be enough. He switched to his audio equipment next. During his years with the FBI, he'd learned that corrupt officers often felt safe talking inside their patrol cars, believing the cabin was secure. They didn't know about the new generation of directional microphones that could pick up conversations through vehicle walls. Isaiah had borrowed one such device from the Bureau's technical division before taking leave. He'd planted it near the police parking lot 2 days ago, disguised as part of a maintenance worker's equipment. Now, he downloaded the recordings, running them through filtering software to clean up the audio. Most of it was useless: routine radio chatter, personal calls, music. But then he heard it. "Got that security footage dealt with," a voice said. Isaiah recognized Officer Matthews, one of Riker's closest allies in the department. Better have, another voice replied. Sergeant Cooper. Can't have evidence floating around. Did you wipe the backup drives too? Yeah, but Riker wanted the original. Said he'd handle it personally. Smart. Keep it close, keep it safe. These FBI types, they don't give up easy. Isaiah's heart raced as he enhanced the audio, cleaning it further. The conversation continued, detailing how they'd coordinated the theft and subsequent cover-up. It was exactly what he needed. Direct confession of evidence tampering. But the mention of Riker keeping the original drive, that was the real gold. If he could find it, he'd have undeniable proof. Isaiah pulled up rental property databases, cross-referencing names and aliases commonly used by officers trying to hide assets. Hours passed as he searched, fueled by coffee and determination. Finally, a pattern emerged. A storage unit had been rented the day after the diner incident under the name Dale Richards, close enough to Dale Riker to be memorable, but different enough to seem unrelated. The payment traced back to a prepaid card purchased with cash, but the rental application included a phone number that matched one of Riker's burner phones. Got you, Isaiah whispered. The storage facility was on the edge of town. Safe and sound storage, a place with minimal security and no cameras. Perfect for hiding evidence. Isaiah drove there in an unmarked bureau car, parking where he could observe the entrance. He waited until early afternoon when the facility was quietest. The lock on Unit 217 was high quality, but no match for his specialized tools. Inside, cardboard boxes lined metal shelves, a convincing show of normal storage. But Isaiah knew better. He examined each box methodically until he found one that felt too heavy for its size. Inside, wrapped in bubble wrap and anti-static bags, was the diner's original security drive. His hands were steady as he photographed everything in place, documenting the chain of custody. He carefully packed the drive into a specialized evidence container designed to prevent tampering. Standard FBI issue for sensitive electronic evidence. Each piece now formed an unbreakable chain. The recovered metadata showing the cover-up, the audio of officers confessing to evidence tampering, and the original drive itself, found in a storage unit rented under Riker's alias. Back at the business center, Isaiah reviewed everything one final time. The case was solid. More than solid. It was airtight. The kind that federal prosecutors dreamed about, with clear evidence of civil rights violations, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to a number he rarely used. Assistant Director Robert Callahan headed the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force. He was the highest-ranking official Isaiah knew who couldn't be bought or pressured. A man known for taking down entire corrupt systems regardless of political consequences. Isaiah boarded the 7:15 a.m. train, his evidence container secured in a reinforced briefcase handcuffed to his wrist. The rhythmic clatter of wheels on rails matched his heartbeat as urban sprawl gave way to rolling countryside. He'd made this journey countless times during his career, but never with stakes this personal. The familiar weight of his FBI credentials rested in his jacket pocket. For 2 hours, he reviewed his presentation mentally, arranging and rearranging the sequence for maximum impact. Every piece had to flow naturally into the next, building an irrefutable case that even the most skeptical official couldn't ignore. Other passengers dozed or scrolled through phones, unaware that the unassuming man in the gray suit carried evidence that would shake an entire police department to its foundation. Isaiah thought of Marcus at home, probably sitting at the kitchen table with Avery, both of them waiting for news. He'd left before dawn, kissing them goodbye with quiet determination. "Whatever happens," Avery had whispered, holding him tight, "we're proud of you." The train arrived at Union Station at 9:22 a.m. Isaiah navigated the morning crowd with practiced ease, his stride purposeful as he headed for the exit. Outside, the federal building rose against the sky, its limestone facade gleaming in the morning sun. Security recognized him immediately. He'd worked dozens of cases here before. But today, they treated him with extra formality, noting his visitor badge and evidence container with professional curiosity. The elevator carried him to the 12th floor, where the Public Corruption Task Force occupied an entire wing. Assistant Director Robert Callahan's office showcased 30 years of service through the photos and commendations on its walls. The man himself sat behind a broad desk, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed a preliminary brief Isaiah had sent ahead. "Agent Holloway," Callahan said, standing to shake his hand. "I've been expecting you." Isaiah placed his briefcase on the conference table and began his presentation. He started with the diner footage, letting the raw violence of Riker's assault speak for itself. Callahan's jaw tightened as he watched Marcus being struck. "The initial incident was just the beginning," Isaiah explained, moving to the financial records. "Here's where it gets interesting." He laid out the complex web of corruption, starting with the suspicious departmental expenses. Bank records showed regular payments to shell companies owned by the political donor who'd blocked the DOJ intervention. Those same companies had made donations to the police pension fund and the re-election campaign of the judge who dismissed complaints against officers. "The money trail is clear," Isaiah said, pointing to highlighted transactions. "But it gets worse." He played the audio recordings next. The officers' casual discussion of evidence tampering echoed in the quiet office. Callahan leaned forward, his expression darkening as he listened to them conspire. "And here's the crown jewel," Isaiah said, carefully removing the original security drive from its container. "Found this in a storage unit rented under Riker's alias. Chain of custody is fully documented, and the drive's metadata proves it's the original from the diner." Callahan examined each piece of evidence methodically, asking precise questions that Isaiah answered with confidence. 2 hours passed as they dissected every detail. Finally, Callahan removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. "This isn't just about one assault anymore, is it?" "No, sir," Isaiah replied. "It's about a systemic abuse of power that's terrorized an entire community. The assault on my son was just the match that lit the fuse." Callahan nodded slowly. "We've had suspicions about that department for years, but could never get solid evidence. You've handed me everything we need for a full RICO case." He reached for his phone. "I'm authorizing emergency intervention. We'll move at dawn tomorrow." Relief washed through Isaiah, but he kept his expression neutral. "What's the operational plan?" "Full tactical team, supported by state police we've vetted. We'll take the station first. Secure all records before they can be destroyed. Simultaneous arrests of key players at their homes." Callahan's eyes hardened. "Including your friend, Officer Riker." For the next hour, they refined details. Isaiah provided shift schedules, building layouts, and names of officers likely to resist. Each point was methodically documented and incorporated into the operation plan. The return train felt faster somehow. Isaiah watched the landscape blur past, imagining the machinery of federal justice grinding into motion behind him. Teams would be assembling, warrants being prepared, tactical plans finalized. By this time tomorrow, everything would be different. He found Avery and Marcus in the kitchen, just as he'd pictured. They looked up expectantly as he entered. The hope in their eyes made his throat tight. "It's happening," he said simply. "Tomorrow morning." Marcus hugged him fiercely, and Avery squeezed his hand. They ate dinner together, trying to maintain normal conversation despite the electricity in the air. None of them mentioned the operation directly, as if speaking about it might somehow jinx it. That night, Isaiah lay awake, listening to the quiet house. Somewhere across town, federal agents were already arriving, checking into hotels under assumed names. Tactical teams would be testing equipment, reviewing floor plans, preparing for dawn. Through his window, he could see stars scattered across the dark sky. In just a few hours, those same stars would fade as black SUVs rolled silently into position around the police station, carrying the justice he'd fought so hard to secure. The early morning fog clung to the ground as unmarked federal vehicles glided into position around the police station. It was 6:45 a.m. Shift change would begin in 15 minutes. Isaiah and Marcus watched from their parked car across the street, far enough away to be safe, but close enough to witness everything. "Are you ready?" Isaiah asked softly. Marcus nodded, his eyes fixed on the station's front doors, where officers would soon arrive for the morning shift. Through his earpiece, Isaiah heard the tactical team leader's steady voice. "All units in position. Execute on my mark." The first officers began arriving for their shift, walking casually toward the building. Some carried coffee cups, others chatted with colleagues. None noticed the subtle movements in the shadows around them. "Execute." Black-clad figures emerged simultaneously from multiple directions. FBI agents in tactical gear rushed forward with military precision. Local officers froze, coffee cups dropping, forgotten to the pavement. "FBI! Everyone on the ground! Hands where we can see them!" The shock on their faces was absolute. Officers who'd believed themselves untouchable suddenly found themselves face down on the wet concrete, being zip-tied by federal agents. Through the station's glass doors, Isaiah could see the chaos erupting inside. Night shift officers scrambled to react, but found every exit covered by tactical teams. The FBI's operation was a masterwork of timing and coordination. Then came the moment Isaiah had waited months to see. Officer Dale Riker pulled into the parking lot in his patrol car, right on schedule for his shift. He stepped out, already sneering at what he assumed was some kind of protest, until he saw the FBI tactical gear. "Dale Riker," an agent called out, weapon trained steadily. "Hands on your head." "Do it now!" Riker's face contorted with disbelief. He started to reach for his service weapon, but found himself surrounded by 4 agents with rifles aimed at his chest. "Don't," the lead agent warned. "You're already facing enough charges." The arrogance finally cracked. Riker slowly raised his hands, his face ashen as agents moved in to cuff him. The metallic click of handcuffs echoed across the suddenly silent parking lot. "Dale Riker, you're under arrest for civil rights violations, assault, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and participation in a criminal enterprise," the agent recited, loud enough for gathering onlookers to hear. "You have the right to remain silent." Marcus gripped Isaiah's arm. "They're really doing it." "Yes, they are," Isaiah said quietly. "Watch." Chief Harold Strickmore arrived next, his usual composure shattering as he took in the scene. 2 agents intercepted him before he could reach the building. "Chief Strickmore, federal agents. You're being placed on immediate suspension, pending criminal charges. Please surrender your weapon and badge." Strickmore's face reddened. "This is ridiculous. Do you know who I am?" "Yes, sir, we do. That's precisely why we're here." They efficiently disarmed him, removed his badge, and escorted him to a waiting vehicle. News vans began arriving, reporters spilling out with cameras rolling. The morning light strengthened, burning away the fog to reveal the full spectacle. Townspeople gathered on sidewalks, watching in stunned silence as more officers were led out in handcuffs. 2 senior sergeants known for enforcing Strickmore's corrupt policies were next, followed by the evidence room supervisor who'd helped destroy complaints. Each arrest drew gasps from the growing crowd. "I see, Mrs. Jensen," Marcus said suddenly, pointing to where Nora stood among the onlookers, hands pressed to her mouth as she watched Riker being loaded into a transport vehicle. Isaiah's phone buzzed, a message from Callahan. "Donors' accounts frozen. Judge suspended pending investigation. Full RICO indictments coming." The morning sun now illuminated the scene fully, symbolic of the light finally shining on years of darkness. Isaiah heard snippets of conversation from the crowd. "I can't believe it's really happening. All these years, and finally, someone actually stood up to them." Riker caught sight of Isaiah and Marcus as agents guided him toward a waiting vehicle. his face twisted with impotent rage, but he could only watch as his world crumbled around him. The heavy door slammed shut on his final glare. More townspeople arrived by the minute. Isaiah recognized faces from his investigation, witnesses who'd been too afraid to speak, victims who'd been silenced, elderly residents who'd endured decades of abuse. They watched with a mixture of shock and vindication as justice finally arrived in their town. Television reporters were going live now, their voices carrying across the parking lot. In a stunning development this morning, federal agents have swept into River's Edge, arresting multiple police officers in what appears to be a major corruption investigation. Marcus turned to Isaiah, his eyes bright. "You really did it." "We did it," Isaiah corrected him. "Your courage started all of this." The crowd had noticed them now. Whispers spread as people recognized them, understanding flowing through the gathering like a wave. Nora Jensen broke away from the crowd, hurrying over to embrace them both. "Thank you," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for not giving up." More community members approached, wanting to shake their hands or simply stand near them as they watched the proceedings. The fear that had gripped the town for so long was dissolving in the morning light. Reporters noticed the growing cluster of people around Isaiah and Marcus. Camera crews turned their way, rushing over with microphones extended. Isaiah pulled Marcus close, protective but proud, as the reporters called out questions about what it felt like to see justice finally served. A week later, late afternoon sunlight bathed the courthouse lawn, where hundreds of chairs had been arranged in neat rows. The space overflowed with townspeople, many standing along the edges because every seat was taken. American flags fluttered in the gentle breeze, and a podium stood ready on the temporary stage. Isaiah, Avery, and Marcus sat in the front row alongside Nora Jensen, whose diner had become a symbol of the community's awakening. Behind them, elderly residents who'd lived through decades of abuse dabbed at their eyes, finally seeing the change they'd waited so long for. The federal task force chief approached the podium, adjusting the microphone. Camera crews from national networks jostled for position as he began to speak. "Today marks a new chapter for River's Edge," he announced, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd. "Following our investigation, we are announcing formal charges against former Officer Dale Riker for civil rights violations, assault, conspiracy, and participation in a criminal enterprise." A murmur rippled through the audience. The chief continued. "Former Chief Harold Strickmore and 4 other officers face multiple counts of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and racketeering. Additionally, local businessman James Warner faces federal charges for his role in corrupting the judicial process." Marcus sat straighter in his chair as the chief detailed the charges. Each count represented another brick pulled from the wall of corruption that had seemed so impenetrable just weeks ago. "The evidence gathered was extensive and damning," the chief explained. "We discovered systematic abuse spanning years, destroyed complaint records, manufactured evidence, witness intimidation, and financial fraud. This case represents everything that damages trust between law enforcement and the communities they're sworn to protect." He paused, turning toward Isaiah. "But today isn't just about what was wrong. It's about one man who stood up and showed us what integrity looks like." Special Agent Isaiah Holloway could have handled this personally, could have sought private revenge. Instead, he chose justice. He meticulously built a case that exposed not just individual wrongdoing, but an entire system of corruption. Avery squeezed Isaiah's hand as the chief continued. "The FBI is promoting Agent Holloway to lead a new task force focused on civil rights violations and police corruption. He'll have his choice of assignment and expanded resources to continue this vital work." Applause erupted, lasting several minutes. When it finally quieted, the chief gestured to a local council member who approached the podium with a large ceremonial check. In recognition of the courage shown by Marcus Holloway, the council member announced, We are establishing the Marcus Holloway Resilience Scholarship Fund with an initial endowment of $50,000. This annual scholarship will support young people who demonstrate moral courage in the face of injustice. Marcus blinked in surprise as people stood, applauding. Several of his classmates in the audience whooped and cheered. The council member wasn't finished. Furthermore, we are designating Jensen's Diner as a historic site of civic courage. Mrs. Jensen's refusal to be intimidated, her installation of security cameras, and her immediate response to injustice helped spark this transformation. Nora wiped tears from her eyes as the crowd applauded again. Several elderly patrons who'd been coming to her diner for decades called out words of support. The mayor stepped up next, his usual political polish replaced by genuine emotion. We failed our community for too long. We allowed fear and complacency to let corruption flourish. But today, we stand together to say, never again. He turned to face the Holloways directly. Isaiah, Avery, Marcus, you showed us what real strength looks like. Not the false strength of bullies with badges, but the true strength of standing up for what's right, no matter the cost. In the audience, Marcus's friends from school beamed with pride. The elderly residents who'd shared their stories with Isaiah nodded in approval, decades of suppressed hope finally blooming on their faces. The task force chief returned to the podium. We're implementing a complete restructuring of the police department. New leadership, new training, new accountability measures. But more importantly, we're seeing a community awakening to its own power. He gestured to the crowd. Look around. A week ago, many of you were afraid to speak to your neighbors about what you'd witnessed. Today, you're standing together in the open, demanding better. That's what real change looks like. The mayor invited Isaiah, Avery, and Marcus to join him on stage. As they stood, the applause swelled again. Isaiah noticed faces in the crowd he recognized from his investigation. The witnesses who'd been too scared to speak, now standing proud. The shop owners who'd suffered harassment, now cheering openly. The retired teachers and coaches who'd watched generations of kids endure abuse, now wiping away tears of relief. Nora Jensen joined them on stage, and the mayor presented her with a plaque commemorating her diner's new historic status. She spoke briefly, her voice thick with emotion. For years, we all just accepted that this was how things had to be, she said. We told ourselves nothing would change. But all it took was one brave young man, one dedicated father, and one community finally willing to stand up and say enough. Marcus stepped to the microphone, something he'd insisted on doing despite his natural shyness. His voice was clear and strong. A week ago, I wasn't sure justice was real, he admitted. But now I know it is, if we're brave enough to demand it and persistent enough to work for it. The elderly residents in the front rows nodded vigorously, some raising their hands in approval. They'd waited longest for this day, and their joy was profound. The task force chief made one final announcement. Starting tomorrow, federal investigators will begin meeting with any community members who wish to report past abuses. Every complaint will be heard. Every incident will be investigated. The wall of silence is down. The atmosphere was electric with possibility. Neighbors who'd barely spoken before were embracing. Young and old, black and white, all united in this moment of transformation. Isaiah placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder as the applause swelled again, the sound rolling across the courthouse lawn like thunder. The voice of justice finally breaking through years of enforced silence. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.